New jobs numbers came out today for August, and if you haven't heard, they are showing for the first time since 1945, the U.S. has created 0 new jobs. Therefore, the unemployment rate remains unchanged at 9.1%. And the U.S. economy actually added fewer jobs in June and July than we originally thought. Those numbers were revised down too. So naturally, when we hear bad economic news, we see what people in the finance world call a flight to safety. And gold, which some now consider a safe haven, jumped the most in more than 4 weeks today, closing at $1,876 and some change an ounce. And here now, a predictor of the future who has revealed he is completely invested in gold, and he's willing to take on some economists who doubt him because of that, because of his faith in it. Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal, and he's director of the Trends Research Institute. And he's going to help us sort out all of this news coming out today. Hi, thank you so much for being here, Mr. Celente. First of all, you're making a lot of money today, aren't you?
Well, I've been in gold for many, many years. I began trading gold in 1978. My first buy was at $187.50 an ounce. And what's different now than then that people don't understand and why they think it's a bubble and it's not, is back then, it was only the United States that was really playing the gold market. You had guys like the Hunts brothers that had cornered the silver market, for example. It's a whole different world now. Back then, you know, it was the Red Chinese. Nobody was doing business with them. And Russia and Eastern Europe were locked behind the Soviet Union's Iron Curtain. There's a whole global game going on. It's a global meltdown, and gold is the ultimate golden safe haven.
You know, you have been willing to take on people that have called gold a bubble. One of them is economist Nouriel Roubini, who's been quoted saying gold is becoming a bubble at least. He's a smart guy. He talks about how gold isn't money and it can be devalued by countries' leaders. So why are you so sure he's wrong?
Well, he's been wrong on his call. He said, I believe gold would top out at Lucky about $1,500 an ounce. And what are we at, you know, 1,000, we're approaching $1,900 an ounce. So by their deeds you shall know them. And the other thing is, so let him put his money in that digital money that's not worth the paper it's not printed on, called US dollars and euros. That's why the currencies are, the gold is going so high, is because that everyone knows that the only way that the Europeans or the Americans can get their way out of this mess, they're actually not going to get out of it, but to keep the Ponzi scheme going, is by printing more money. But they put those white shoe boy labels on it, such as QE2 and QE3. It means just printing more money. And oh, and by the way, interest rates. The Federal Reserve said they're going to keep them down near zero until mid-2013. And the European Central Bank is talking about lowering them. So the lower the interest rates go, and as they stay low, the higher the price of gold goes. It's simple arithmetic.
Yeah, but we've also seen treasuries rally despite the low interest rates, the low return on investment, and low yields on those.
Yes, but you know, there's another thing, too, that I want to mention when they're talking about comparing gold to the real estate bubble and the dot-com bubble. Those are different bubbles. Those are real bubbles. The dot-com bubble was built upon, you know, these Silicon Valley con artists that had no business plans, but a lot of Wall Street barkers hype. And the real estate market was just that, a bubble. They created it. Remember, they had those wonderful ads on TV. You know, your house is as good as a piggy bank. Take out a home equity loan. People flipping homes, buying pre-construction price condominiums in Florida. That's a bubble. This is not a bubble. The bubble is the fake money that the Federal Reserve and the European central banks are printing.
Make a prediction, because a lot of people are saying that QE3 is coming next month. Do you predict we're going to see that?
You know, I don't know if they're going to call it QE3 or some other kind of scheme, but they have to do something to keep pumping money into the system. Look, Lauren, we found out because of the reporting that went on, we just found out 2 years ago that the Federal Reserve was pumping what, 1.2 trillion into the banks around the world that we didn't know about. They're going to do something, and that's why gold prices are going up.
Speaking of, staying on the topic of why gold prices are rallying today, you mentioned earlier that many consider this a safe haven now, and one of the reasons people are saying it's rallying is because of the jobs numbers. And the White House, when it sent out its statement on the jobs numbers today, they emphasized how the economy has added private sector jobs for 18 months. But we want to take a look at this chart, which conveniently the White House did not send out in its statement, and it shows what public sector jobs have done. And they have just gone down. I mean, these are local government jobs that are just being shed by the thousands. What does that tell you, Gerald?
Well, look, we know that that Washington is talking about more austerity measures, the same kind of austerity measures that are racking through Europe as well. What does that mean? It means more cutbacks. So at a time when the economy is already slowing down, they created, as you pointed out, 0 jobs, which is just perfect for Washington because they bat zero on just about everything that's thrown at them, whether it's a war on drugs, wars in Afghanistan, wars on education, you name it. That's what they do, 0. So what it shows us is that at a time when things are slowing down, it's going to become much worse. They gave it their best shot, Lauren. Remember, they had Larry, the brilliant Summers, as the head of the economic team. Remember the stimulus programs. Remember under Bush TARP. They've given it everything they can, and they're coming up with goose eggs. So we're only going to see it get much worse.
But, you know, it's not gloomy for everybody, Gerald. The French fashion house Hermes, which is known basically for having the most expensive handbag that is on the market, the Birkin, it's $10,000, that bag that our audience is seeing. They announced that their profits jumped 50%, and they have to hire 400 new employees to keep up with the demand for things like their $10,000 bag. Who has all this money for $10,000 Birkin bags?
Well, again, I just mentioned where I talked about the $1.2 trillion that the Fed fed into the financial institutions and banks, all of this QE stimulus, all of the Obama stimulus and Bush TARP. Where did the money go? It's called too big to fail. So the money went all to the too bigs, and the rest of the people are too small to save. The gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the United States than any of the industrialized nations, and it's the same trend that's going on worldwide.
So if you're poor, you get fired. If you're rich, you get bailed out and get to buy your Birkin bag. Thanks for weighing in on the latest coming out today. That was publisher of Trends Journal and director of the Trends Research Institute, Gerald Celente.